Okay, so why am I here? Thank you for the invite and appreciate the opportunity, both personally from my perspective, as this topic is very close to my heart. Been working in this space for a number of years now, specifically focusing on workforce and workplace as a collective topic, because we don't see it as an isolated agenda. It's now, as a result of COVID, a very correlated agenda. So been working in this space. We've also come up with a proposition called Mindspace, which is a new capability that we are taking to market as part of this, as part of one of the benefits that came out of COVID. Pretty dramatic times for all of us, yet there are some opportunities that we have seen as a result of that. Mindspace from a KPMG perspective is one of that, where it's a new capability. So what is it? And as we go through the presentation, hopefully I'll give you a sense of that. What I'm going to start off with is some stats, which may not be new to you. Yet the point to note here is our fundamental way of working has changed. The Mindspace topic talks about workforce and workplace. With regards to the workforce, what I'm going to talk about is the future of work. How has it changed? Why has it changed? And what is the opportunity for us? 71% of the organization's growth relies on the ability to challenge and disrupt any norm of business. That's uncharted waters. So 71% of organizations say that they are traveling through uncharted waters. 63% are actively disrupting the sector in which they operate, both as a result of a internal disruption, BAU-led, organization-led, and also as a result of social, environmental, in some instances, policy, and now with COVID-related. And I think it's a no-brainer. And there's so many articles out there to say that CEOs are concerned, and now workforce and the utilization of talent and the talent augmentation, talent optimization has become more critical as a strategic agenda than it was ever before. Why? Is because, again, a no-brainer, digitization is disrupting the environment. And it's not just technology, right? It is the environmental factor around COVID. So given that the way of working, the norm, the hybrid work environment, it's all here to stay. We at KPMG believe that the new norm will be hybrid. And there's a lot of evidence out there in the world to support that. So how do we actually operate within this environment? Bringing it closer to home. We've seen that remote working is a new reality, as I was just saying, and I'm not going to leave you too much to death on the slide. But again, some stats to state: 74% of TCS employees will permanently work from home. I'm working with a client who's a global pharmaceutical company. 100% of their employees are work from home, except their research arm, which requires a lab environment. And there are so many other examples: Google, Microsoft, so on and so forth. Bringing it even closer, very recently, there was an article in the Straits Times. So one of the implications of working from home is people feel isolated because we are now truly operating in an isolated economy. We are inclusive. Yes, we trust our employees. We are on innumerable Zoom and Teams calls through the course of the day. And some of the interesting topics that Catherine brought about in terms of productivity and the measures around that. Yet there is an impact on the individual because we would, in the past, go to work. Now work's come to us. It's become part of our life. And we have to find that space and time within our daily activities with, let's say, kids, dogs, pets walking around, and family walking around to be able to operate effectively. There is a huge focus on employee well-being. And I just want to make another point here that whilst we talk about productivity, whilst we talk about lots of performance metrics, this is one area which everyone talks about, yet very less is done in this area. KPMG, as part of the Mindspace proposition, has taken it to the next level where we are measuring well-being of employees, and I'll come to that in a minute. So if these are some of the implications, this brings out some emerging challenges, right? And I just touched upon employee well-being, the preference to work from home. It's interesting, we recently did a survey in KPMG amongst our 3,000 odd employees, and the emphatic response to what would they like, whether it's hybrid or working from home or coming back to work, there was more than 80% of our staff want a hybrid work arrangement where they work 3 days from home and the other 2 days from work. So that's a reality. What the other thing, which is a reality, which is around the space pick that came into the discussion with Catherine earlier, is KPMG has 35 nationalities in Singapore, 35 nationalities outside of Singapore, outside of Singaporeans working in our office. Most of them are within the region. So does that bring upon an opportunity for those individuals to go back to their home country and work from there, because the time difference is minimal? Of course, there are tax implications, FBT implications, and policy implications, but is that doable? So we are actually exploring that as we speak. I'm going to touch upon that in a few minutes. Access to talent pool, it's global already. I recently worked with a very large multinational bank within the region. They have 4,500 employees in Singapore, mostly back office employees. What they have achieved during the COVID period is they would have never even comprehended, where all the 4,000, or when I say all, most of the 4,500 employees were working from home, doing back office process work. So it's doable, it's achievable. And hence, you've got an access of talent pool who's working from home, can be reallocated to different areas of work. Work can be conducted from any site. How? Through virtual collaboration tools. And here we are working on a Zoom call. I haven't checked how many participants are on this call, but I'm assuming more than 10, 12, right? So we're all virtually connected. There is automation and contactless technology will reduce human interaction. So we have QR codes, we have bots, we have a variety of mechanisms now, which have always been part of any organization's technology change or technology initiatives. That has taken precedence now, because we cannot meet anymore. So how do we conduct our work on a day-to-day basis? Workplaces and customer-facing locations. Another large government agency I'm working with, who's got point of presence, where people actually walk in. They have stopped their customer-facing operations and are doing everything online. They have recently introduced a chatbot, which was implemented within 4 months from start to finish. So customers can go onto chatbot. They're looking at claims processing, end-to-end fulfillment as well of some of their service types online. So emerging challenges, yet the flavor amongst these challenges is opportunity. And within that, why is this happening? And I touched upon this right from the start, right? On the left extreme, you have a scenario where majority work from the office, which has been the case forever. But with this new revolution, this industrial revolution 4.0, I think, and based on all evidence, it suggests that we work on a hybrid model where most work from home, and the core functionalities work from the office, and mostly off premises. That's happening to us as we speak. So these are some of the factors that are prompting organizations to make such fundamental shifts. What's driving some of these shifts, right? There's a disruption that's happening in the workforce, and there is a mobile workforce. Even pre-COVID, the rise of the gig economy, a millennial workforce. Singapore is a great example. It's according to a recent worldwide economic survey, Singapore is #1 in terms of innovation, but number 19 in terms of adopting new technologies to drive that change. And I'm happy to share some of that insights on a different call or offline if required. There is a mobile workforce, which requires future workforce skills. Very simple example, we did a large piece of work with a government agency. Very recently, I led that piece of work where as part of their accounting division, we did an analysis on the workforce, and the analysis suggests, and this is all data-driven, this is not hypotheses, this is data-driven, which says that accountants are best positioned based on the current skills that is required for an accountant to be trained as base-level cybersecurity experts. Who would have even thought? How do you do that? You create learning paths. The timeline required from a base, and we have definitions around base level and so on and so forth, which I can again address in a later forum. But base level accounting to a cybersecurity specialist within 6 months. And that's proven, and that's being implemented by one of the agencies as we speak. Innovation, and I don't think I have to state anything more around that word, because I think as an organization, you yourselves are at the cutting edge of that. So innovation is critical, it's fundamental. Amongst all of this, as a workforce and as a management of the workforce, the role of HR has changed. Whilst the administrative side remains, there is a need for the HR organization to be extremely creative and innovative around how they attract, retain talent pool, how do they identify talent pool. Christine brought about a point. I think there was a question on hiring. How is the hiring process happening? So some of these models are already starting to play out as we speak. Employee engagement, fundamental. You can have the best collaboration tools. If the employee is not engaged, your productivity will drop. And again, I'm going to touch upon how we are managing that. People analytics, HR apps and software, to name a few, right? In addition to that, KPMG has a technology radar which says that within the next 5, 10, 15 years, these are the technologies that are either here. Some of them are here today, as you can see in the inner circle. Some IoT platforms, automated data discovery, edge computing, serviceless PaaS, some organizations. We are seeing that already. I'm working with a large bank within the region who's using drone technology. And some of these technologies that you see in the circle, you may be already touching upon and using it for your work or at least dabbling with it. So technology is a key disruptor. In addition to that, there are 3 workforce trends that are shaping the workplace, which is where and how. Where do I work from? How do I work? Are you going to enable me? I work closely with a large insurance company here who paid $1,000 to his employees very early on in the COVID period. I think it was the start of phase 2, where they paid $1,000 to each and every employee in Singapore and across the region, of course, to go and buy whatever they need to make themselves enabled. The government provided $150 to each of its staff to do the same. Who and what automation? How's my work? Who's going to do the task? What percentage of my task is going to get automated? Am I going to drive efficiency? And if I do, am I going to get capacity gains as a result of that? And if I can free up some of my time, can I use that effectively somewhere else? And workforce preferences, right? Where, again, it's about the location. It's the choice. And it's also about the choice of work you're doing, because as a result of this disruption, new areas of work are opening up, which were always there, but it's now become more front and center. So your staff, your workforce might choose to work in certain other areas. Finally, very quickly, the expectations of the workforce is changing as well. There's an experience element to it. There's a simplicity around that's required. I don't think we have to, I have to state this obviously, but it's pretty obvious that instant everything has been there for the longest time. So these disruptors actually bring out some implications, which we see as opportunities, as I stated. So a recent study done for a government agency in Singapore shows the potential FTE impact of automation, augmentation, and technology jobs. Let me just spend a couple of minutes on this slide to explain to you from, if you start looking from the left to your right, the left bar suggests today. When I say today, most organizations, all work is critical. Every piece of work, and everyone goes to the workplace. Let's assume COVID's not there, right? Even given that, even if we take COVID out of the equation for a second, everything is considered to be core operations. The study suggests that within the next 5 years, and when we get down to the depths of this bar chart, which is the second chart from the left, it suggests that within the next 12 months, 11.1% of this agency's jobs are going to get automated, if not already. And that is 11.1% of the total workforce. Whilst it may seem doom and gloom, so what do we do with this 11.1%? It actually creates 7.3% worth of capacity. So which means that you have 7.3% of that staff able to do other things. You can think about moving them to, as you saw on the previous slide, workforce preferences, different types of work. We also see 4.3% new roles emerging, and if I point you back to the technology radar, jobs around blockchain, robotic process automation, drone technology, so on and so forth, right? There are hundreds of possibilities. So 4.3% of new jobs will arise within the next 12 months to 5 years. As a result of which, in the next 5 years, your organization, the core organization, is going to shift from 100 to 77.3. And if we extrapolate that to the next 10 to 15 years, over the next 15 years, your organization, the core functionality will shift to 42.2%. Add to that the factor of remote ability. If you see to the right of the screen, responding to short-term workforce variations. So how do you manage that? How do you use data that you already have? It's not new data. You don't need external data. It's data that you have. How do you use that data to determine the workforce variations? How do you do scenario planning? Profiling to understand whether the work levels are decreasing or increasing due to the impact, and impact is here specific to COVID, if I can point that out. Reviewing and updating HR policies. As I gave the example, KPMG is looking at reviewing whether this 3,000 workforce can be spread out rather than a centralized model can be decentralized and work from somewhere else. So this is real. This is evidence-based data that I just wanted to showcase to you. Another example, we've also seen as part of our work that video meetings help employees stay connected. And actually, I feel it from my perspective. To be honest, and this is not just because of this webinar, and I've said this to whoever I speak to, I've become more productive. Whilst it's draining, at the end of the day, by 8 o'clock, I don't want to talk to another human being sometimes, even to myself internally. But I've become productive because I don't have those chats. I'm not signing off on a typical Singapore lunchtime, right? Everyone, the whole floor is empty for an hour and a half lunch. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm spending lesser time. So as a result of which, people are becoming more connected. There is a 25% less turnover as a result of remote-friendly companies because they are encouraging you work from wherever. And as I said, I was just using myself as an example, but we've seen at least 20% more productivity improve as a result of this. And this is all credible evidence-based data from surveys that we've done recently. A point came around real estate. I took note of that, reduction of office space. We've actually seen that, and to the left of the screen, if you take it just ballpark, back of the envelope view of, let's say, 500 employees, 50,000 square feet space, finance and insurance sector in Singapore, right? Average cost, which you can see on the left, over a period of time, the bar chart, which is to the middle of the screen, the second section, the middle section, in the year one, you see at least about 20% cost reduction as a result of savings in rents and utilities. This is a real example from one of the work that we did for a large real estate organization very recently. When I say very recently, during the COVID period, the last 8-9 months. And this shouldn't be new. Every organization we speak to is considering this as we speak. KPMG, our offices in Hong Kong building, we have most of the floors, 3,000 employees. We hardly use that space anymore. So do we actually need that? And if so, can we think about how we use the space? Because people don't want to come back to work. Even when I go back to work, because I'm team B, I find 3 or 4 people. So what's the point? Over 5 years, to the right of the screen, we see headcount savings, 10% productivity gain and headcount savings as a result of some of this redistribution, additional headcount, a 10% gain in productivity as a result of you being actively involved in work and engaged, hopefully, reduces additional headcount requirements. So retention, it's helping retention in many ways. And I want to make this point because COVID has been doom and gloom for all of us, right? Yet there are some pluses coming out of this this world event, which has potentially forced us to reset not just our thinking, the way of life, the way we deal with each other, humanity in general. Bill Gates, I just wanted to put a quote in there to break the monotone of me speaking, right? Bill Gates said very recently, we overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. So there is no inaction anymore. We have to act. We must act. So what does that action mean? That response at KPMG will look at across three fundamental bits. And we as consultants, we talk in threes most times, right? So it's business, technology, and workplace, which I said it's Mindspace. It's workforce and workplace. Some of the text you have in there are prompts to help you start thinking about what are some of the questions that you might start to consider. What roles can be done virtually? What are the tax implications to some of the examples I was giving you? How do you best use technology? Cybersecurity. What are the data implications? There was a question earlier in Catherine's section around how do you share data? Once you're sharing data with people remotely, what are the security implications of that? How does technology enable, support, and protect you? Workplace, we work with an organization called 8 Incorporated who designed the Apple stores worldwide. So we're looking at reinventing the workspace, making, even to the extent of, we're working with a very small organization here where they're looking at home-based workspaces. So reinventing some of that. And more importantly, what are the sustainability impacts? And I'll touch upon that very quickly in the next couple of slides. Actually, the next one. So Mindspace essentially looks at this challenge that we spoke about, the trends that are making the shifts, and the opportunities that it's creating across these 6 dimensions. And these 6 dimensions are not isolated, they're all connected. The workforce impacts and the ways of working, I touched upon that, which is happening as a result of technology, cultural, social, economic, environmental factors. So hence there's transformation led by technology, by automation. There is an ESG component, that element around not only just real estate, but how do we restructure brick and mortar and align with digital? We have stopped going to retail stores. Retail has taken, the whole paradigm of retail has been hit on the head. It's been trying to bob out of this retail store space for a long time. COVID helped. Predominantly everything's digital now. So how do you augment that? How do you improve that? How do you enhance that and take it to the next level? Clearly policy implications from a variety of levels, right? Compliance, tax, HR, legal. How do you manage that? And that's how the role of HR is changing fundamentally as a function. And it's becoming more and more entrenched as a strategic driver than just an enforcer of policies. Data technology security, I think I've touched upon that enough. Culture, engagement, and well-being. Culture, and many organizations when come and talk about culture, it's probably one of the most used and abused terms. Everyone has a framework, but what are we doing today to manage that? So let me spend a couple of minutes. How KPMG is addressing this. So we actually measure productivity. How do we do that? We do that through your Teams data, Microsoft Teams data, or Zoom data, or your collaboration data. How much time are you spending on meetings? How much time are you actually utilizing to work? Why are we doing that? It's not to monitor, to Catherine's point. It's to ensure that you create the right space amongst meetings, amongst Zoom and Teams calls, for you to actually put your head down and get some work done. And that helps you improve your productivity. It also gives you time to be with yourself rather than constantly talking and being part of a screen, talking and engaging yourself through active conversations. And we are measuring that, and we are measuring that real time. To that productivity element over a dashboard, and we ingest that data, we are also looking at proficiency. How are you improving your quality of work? Again, we measure through outcomes, but we are also measuring the process of getting to that proficiency. Add to that a third dimension. Once you're doing all of this, we want to make sure you're okay. You're not going to be, jumping off the 9th floor, and we find out after the event. Pardon my use of language. I'm being extreme here, deliberately, but we want to make sure everyone's well-being, mental well-being is okay. How are we doing that? We are using some of the same data and presenting a well-being dimension on top of productivity and proficiency on the same dashboard to say, hey, Jay has been on 14 calls today, unnatural, and he's done that consistently for a period of 3 days now in a week. Team leader, function leader, business leader, HR, make sure he's okay. Can you just send him a chat message, or can you just make sure that you have a conversation with him? We are measuring that real time through your existing data, not external data. Happy to touch upon that in a different forum. So that's the productivity, proficiency, and engagement side of things. We have a very large, obviously, as you would be aware, and I'm making the assumption, we have a large cybersecurity team that is looking at how do you protect that data. So there's a huge piece of work that we're doing with the government here to ensure exactly that. Working with large organizations like the Marina Bay Sands of the world and their umbrella organization, and other retail organizations, to ensure how do you look at real estate, the realtors, the landlords, how do you redefine and reinvent who they are and how do they take the business model forward? That's the Mindspace proposition in a nutshell. I only have a couple more slides. I don't want to bore you to death. I'm aware it's slide there. Added to that, we also believe that to be able to embrace some of these technology changes, organizations need a fundamental mindset shift, and that is to think digital. It shouldn't be the case where someone's ramming down digital. It's here now. Your work's going to change, and you have to change. For you to embrace it, it requires a mindset shift. We enable organizations through these 4 tenets that you see on the left, which is the 4 principles of this digital mindset, which is courage to act, connecting end to end. Connecting end to end is your work through the process of work connected end to end. Are you collaborating? I think a question came up earlier during Christine's presentation. How are you ensuring collaboration? We ensure that through connecting end to end as part of that process journey. Everyone needs to have a growth mindset. It's not enough that only a certain team called the digital innovations team in organizations have the growth mindset. Everyone needs to have a growth mindset, and everyone is an innovator in their own way. So how do you uncover that? How do you harness that? And how do you leverage that? So we use this framework to uncover some of that, which is an input into the SWP framework that you just saw earlier. Finally, a claim to fame. We do a variety of work. I have touched upon some Singapore-centric work. We have a variety of work that we do across the region, both around the Mindspace, proposition, both the workforce and the workplace. We've done, as I said, we've done a large piece of work with the government agency here. We've just recently won another large piece of work with a large government organization here, doing exactly this, because the workforce agenda is here and now, and the change must happen now. On that note, I will stop. I don't know if I'm over time, but over to you.
All right, thanks, Jay. Yeah, it's you're just on time, so that's fine. Thank you very much.
Great.
We basically gave you the extra 10 minutes from the break that we had planned for, but that's okay. We have some very good questions. I think let's take the questions first before we will take after this quick Q&A, maybe I'll give about 3 questions for this, and then we'll have a short break of 1 minute so that we can do whatever else we quickly want to do, and then we resume after that. So I'll give you the timing a little later. Sure. So first question is from Xiao Fei. He says, what is the impact of work from home and future work on business continuity and disaster recovery?
So, sorry, say that question. I got scratchy in the receiving end. Sorry.
What is the impact of working from home on BCDR, business continuity and disaster recovery?
So yeah, it's a great question. Do we have an answer? Do we have a methodology and framework for that? Absolutely. Some of the examples that I gave you with the Singapore government organization and other large organizations that we're working with, our cybersecurity team in collaboration with our technology team is actually coming up with the business continuity plan, the disaster recovery plan. So everything's on the cloud, for example, to give you a very simple and use a cliched term. So data is on the cloud, which requires protection. So that's one aspect of it. We're also within KPMG, we have implemented as part of the COVID, a mandatory process to put everything onto a KPMG managed shared drive, which has always been there, right? Most organizations, but we have so much of stuff on the desktop. So now it's a mandatory requirement. And it's being audited on a weekly basis. So client material, client confidential details, all of that goes into a central repository, which is being managed by KPMG, so that no information, no data is lost, no information and data is breached potentially as a result of that. Again, outside of this session, happy to provide you with some real tangible examples to demonstrate that. I can take note of that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Next question is from Aaron. He's asking, the current trend has alerted employers and employees that they can work remotely and work can be done overseas in their home countries, where, as you mentioned in your comments. And how does that change job and work being done in Singapore? How will Singapore's workforce be affected? Will AI and market automation happening, will Singapore be competitive in the region and globally?
I think a great question. Whilst there will be a state of flux where many organizations, if they start moving people outside overseas and working from wherever you are, yes, there will be a talent movement. To us, based on the evidence that we have on the ground and the discussions with government, I think that's an opportunity. We also work very closely with Skills Futures Group, which is looking at the overall learning approach to making Singapore innovative and ensuring that it retains its position. It gives an opportunity for the upcoming stream of new, calling them the grads, the new to the workforce, and parts of the workforce who have been wanting to make the shift and learn something new. It gives the opportunity and the space for those people to come in, learn, and take up those roles as well. I think it's a great opportunity for Singapore, and that's how it's being treated at the highest levels.
Thank you. I think I will concur with that. I think in all ends and purposes, it is very, it's an opportunity. It is a crisis at the same time. It's an opportunity. So I think it's good that we are asking these questions and that we are also trying to figure out how best to respond to it. So thank you for that. One last question, which is from Annie. She's asking, there is software available these days that can be installed on employee notebooks and mobile phones to monitor and log their online activities of employees. Does KPMG use this tool?
Yes. That's the shortest answer I can give you.
All right.
I would just caveat it by saying the idea is not to monitor, and I echo what Catherine said earlier, right? The idea is not to monitor. If trust is not shown and demonstrated, regardless of countries where we work, trust needs to be demonstrated. And if it's not demonstrated at the highest level, trust will never form. So yes, we monitor, but our lens is well-being. Our lens is productivity and proficiency, not to ensure where you are and what you're doing. And if you want to, during your lunch period, watch a half an hour worth of Netflix, please go ahead, do so.
All right. So thank you, Jay.